Hi, this is Don Dawkins, and you're listening to Focus on Metal, one of the greatest rock shows on the planet. Keep listening and keep rocking with Dawkins.
Focus on metal.
Hey, Metalhead, Scott Thompson here, welcoming you to, holy shit, episode 570 of Focus on Metal. So this week we have a very long interview with Chris McLernon. So some of you guys might know him from various places, and then other people out there might not know him at all. So some of you may recognize the name from back in late 80s with the band Cold Sweat, which also Mark Ferrari played in. And Chris played bass in Cold Sweat. Some of you remember him from a little band that came after that called Sweat and Bullets, which had almost everybody from Cold Sweat in it. Probably the bulk of you guys, if you've heard of Chris, know him from Saigon Kick. And he was in and out of that band. So, he went in from 92 to 97. Then when they did a reunion, he was back in there from 2012 to 2015. Quit, I think, about the same time that Phil Varone left. And then he's been back in the band ever since 2017. But the main reason that we have Chris on the show this week is to talk about his Kinell project and the release they put out back in May called Crash, Burn, Rebirth. And it's kind of a collaboration between him and another guy, Colin, and they've got various other people coming in to do drums and things as well. And so that is the main reason Chris is out doing PR and spreading the word, is to get the word out on this album, which you can get up at bandcamp.com, and you can get it either as a download or they even have physical copies. And Chris will talk about that at the end of the interview as well. But if you just go up to Bandcamp and look up Kinell, which is Kinell, and there's a bunch of other ones that are similar to that up there, but like Chris talks about it, look for the one that is the Marshall cab with the big old K in it, and you're at the right spot. The other way to do it is just look up Crash, Burn, Rebirth. Kind of an easier way to hit it. So lots of good stuff this week. We start off talking about Kinell and how that all went, and recording and who was involved and all that, but then, Richie being Richie, loves digging into the past, so he digs into a lot of the stuff with Cold Sweat and a lot of great stuff with Saigon Kick as well. Some great Oni Logan stories in there. So a lot of good stuff this week. It's a long one. It's probably about an hour 15, but hey, you know what? It's summertime. It's another good weekend, layout, relax, chill. Hopefully, unlike around here where we're probably getting rain, you'll be sunny. You could enjoy it. So with that, why don't I turn it over to Richie and Chris McLernon. Oh, one more other thing before we dive into the interview. Just want to let you know that towards the beginning of the interview for a little bit, Chris's audio was a little bit squelchy. It's a cell phone deal, but don't worry. It isn't staying like that through the whole thing. After a little while, it clears up and gets much better. A few times there's some dropouts and things like that, but yeah, I know. Up front, it's a little more squelchy and kind of painful, but it gets better. Hang in there. And again, let's turn it over to Chris and Richie.
Hi, is that Chris?
It is.
Chris, how
Richie.
you doing? Yeah, how you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm good. I've never interviewed you before. Got a lot of questions. So
right.
from all through your career. But I do want to start with the Kinell project that you have going now.
Sure.
When did the project start and what appealed to you about it?
It started, I'd say, about a year and a half ago. What appealed to me about it was that I had done so much work in each band where you kind of write songs for the band, and if they don't work in the band, then what do you do with them? Well, after the bands, I worked in TV and film and advertising. So all the songs that might not have worked in the band, I can now take to ABC, and if ABC didn't like it, I take it to NBC, and guess what? NBC would like it. So I learned how to write for TV and film and ads by just literally pumping them out like hamburgers. It was like just serve them up, like 3-4 songs a week. It was just go, go, go. So once that was all done, and I left the music business and I came to Charleston and ran a family business for a while. And missed it, of course, obviously, and this is at the advent of digital recording, so it made stuff a lot easier to just cut, paste, and send to somebody, and I got work, and then it was, well, can you do this, and can you do this, and can you do this, meaning style-wise, can you be like this person or be like that band, or sure. But after a while, like, okay, I'm somebody else all the time. So how can I be unique? And so when the idea for Kinell came up, it was based on, I love music, which you probably picked up on the record.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably somewhere just stuffed into my genetic code that I can't get out anyway, right? I thought, well, what if I wrote a record for them that was a modern record, so I wasn't trying to recreate Jailbreak, right? I was thinking, okay, I know these elements of the songwriting, so I'm going to take, okay, twin guitars for sure, they're kind of an R&B, rock, jazz sort of rhythm section between the drums and the bass, and then you have these songs and take you somewhere. So I figured, well, I'll just write that and see what I get. And 1 became 2, became 4, became 6. And then we put it all together. I was like, well, you know what? We might as well just do a record. So we did, and here we are.
Where did you find Colin?
Colin was right under my nose here in Charleston. He's one of those guys that, he's done records and he's done touring and he's done all that. But it seems like every town has got a couple guys that you should really pay attention to and seek out. So we were at this mutual friends, Eric Bass from Shinedown. We were at his studio one day, and someone mentioned Thin Lizzy. He was like, "Oh, Colin, you got to talk to Chris. He's great. He's Thin Lizzy," and his eyes lit up. I was like, "Oh, okay, that's good." And he was.
Okay.
He was like he knew all the B-sides and all the crazy songs and the cool leads and all. So we just chatter. So he was an easy find, and in the long run. The great thing about Colin is I don't have to explain anything to him. So it'll be, okay, we're writing this song, it's like this. He takes high harmony, I take a low harmony. So I always say, okay, just think like whatever. Give me something catchy, give me something very upbeat, like the intro lead to Take Me Home. That's all Colin. I just let him loose. Just give me a great intro and just let him roll. And I didn't have to change a thing. So he's a blast.
Did you model this record on any particular Thin Lizzy album, or did you just write songs in that style?
Yeah, I just wrote songs in that style because I thought if I tried to do the Lenny Kravitz thing where I create like this audio trip back in time where I do my best to make the guitar sound like, I don't know, The Fighting Record or Black Rose or whatever, A, I'm going to disappoint myself because it's never going to sound like that in my head. And then B, the ones who know it are just going to, you got close, but not quite, Buster. So I figured, all right, let's just if it's us playing it, and play our butts off, so that if these guys happen to hear it, i.e. that scenario that I'm taking it to them, they wouldn't be embarrassed by it. Like, what are you doing? No, we mean this. we want it to be good. So it was easier to create, I think, as its kind of own sonic picture, as opposed to saying, all right, we're going to sit down and we're going to try and just nail whatever made Thunder and Lightning, let's say, exciting to us. No, we didn't do that because I think we'd be chasing our tails.
Can you remember when your love of Thin Lizzy began?
Yeah, I can. Like most Americans, I would have been a kid, so it was 1976 probably with Boys Are Back in Town and Jailbreak, the Columbus, Ohio radio station that I listened to. I was living in Ohio at the time. I would play those two songs. And when I got to high school, a friend of mine had Chinatown and Black Rose, and I think he had Live and Dangerous. So he said, "Hey, you got to hear these." And I threw them on, and it just spoke to me right away. I was like, this just makes so much sense. I love everything about it. And then years later, you listen back as a pro. You've done records, and sometimes you meet these people you admired as a kid, and sometimes not. Like, I haven't met anyone Thin Lizzy. No, that's not true. I met John Sykes, which is cool. And you just kind of go, well, what's it saying to me? And with that, like Black Rose, I remember specifically Black Rose, and then you have the kind of that just weirdy, funky kind of thing of Waiting for an Alibi, and then Sarah with the drum machine, which was unusual in 1978. You had maybe Sly and his Family Stone that were using drum machines. So when you have that on Sarah, that's cool. And you wonder, what is that? So they're really more diverse than I realized at the time. And I think that's what really appealed to me, too.
I think over in the US, they're really known for just 2 songs, but you brought it up there, how diverse they are.
Oh, yeah.
You could go through the whole catalogue, and there's funk, there's soul, there's rock, blues.
Absolutely.
There's everything. And the other question I want to ask you, because like you've been in the music business for a long time, have you met a lot of musicians who cite them as an influence? Because over here, I think there are a lot of them that cite Lizzie as an influence, but they're not really that well known as a band.
I agree, yeah. The musicians, I think, like any other sort of profession, the musicians get it. The fans, here's a great example. We had a Thin Lizzy band here in town, Colin and I did for a while, with Eric Rickard, who was, he plays Say Goodbye, drums on Say Goodbye on the record, and then a guy named Rex, who played the other guitar. And we're just, we're doing Killer on the Loose, we're doing Wild One, we're doing Still in Love with You, we're doing, what do we do? We did Hollywood. So we're, good
deep.
Breadth of material,
You're
right?
going deep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we went deeper. There were some other, like, Got to Give It Up, and what else? Oh yeah. And people are just kind of staring at us like, what the hell's going on here? Except for the ones who like get it. Like there was one we played. I was like, I want to play this fighting, right? I want to play fighting. And Colin, who doesn't argue with anything about it. Then Lizzie's like, oh, you think, is that a little too obscure? It's like, I don't care. We like it. Let's play it. So we do that, and of course we do Boys Back in Town, and with Cowboys into Cowboy Song into Boys Back in Town, and we do Jailbreak, and we do there was another one off of Jailbreak we did that used to throw people. It was like Running Back or something.
Yeah.
And but then we did Whiskey in the Jar, and this one place just went bananas, and I'm going, what? That's Whiskey in the Jar. Well, it's because they came up to me after the show. All that stuff, the band's great and we love it. And then you did the Metallica tune, which is really cool. I was like, well, yeah. Couldn't believe it. But you just play along. Thanks, cool. Come again. All right. Oh. Yeah, it's Whiskey in the Jar because it's Metallica. Yeah.
Did you ever see Tin Lizzy live when you were young?
No, I didn't. By the time I got to be concert-going age, would have been 1981. So that would have been, I think they're pretty much ensconced over in Europe by that point. They weren't coming back over.
Yeah.
But there was, when we played a gig here, there were 2 guys who had gone to Atlanta and saw Queen in Thin Lizzy in 77.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I said, okay, well, 2 things. How were they? And he said they were amazing. They were just incredible. I was like, well, okay. Thank you. I'm glad they were. I said, and then you guys are fans then. You came and sought us out. How were we? And they said, we're great. Loved the set selection. You guys really paid attention to the guitar solos, and all the twin leads were exactly right, and all the harmonies were right, and everything was right. Like, okay, cool. Thank you. But yeah, that's if I had a time machine, that's absolutely one of the bands I would go back and see. Probably on, I'd want to say either the Black Rose or the Johnny the Fox tours. One of those 2. Those are my 2 favorites.
Black Rose with Gary Moore. Yeah.
Yep. I saw Gary Moore. I saw him on the Wild Frontier tour. I did see that.
Nice. That would be the 87?
Yes. Eric Singer on drums, Neil Carter on keys and other guitar, and Bob Daisley on bass.
Well, now that's a band.
Yeah, you ain't kidding, huh? Pretty good, Gare. Well done.
Yeah. When you're writing the songs for this record, are you listening to all the Lizzy catalogue, or is it just so embedded in you at this stage that you don't really need to listen to any of it?
Yeah, I think it's embedded in, and I think one of the other things I tried to add to it was I love Phil's solo records. Yeah. So I tried to listen to those as well, and just kind of, okay, where was he going? And then Grand Slam. That was it's not out yet, but we did a cover of 19. Because I was watching that, I'm just going to. He was just such a mess by the end of life. It was just tragic. But so I listened to like Solo and Soho and the Phil Lynott record, and I'm just thinking to myself, okay, what's applicable here? and it's always the feel. To me, it's always the feel and his stories. It's just, the songs are just good. It's almost like beat poetry. He's just kind of like, just almost free-forming over some of these songs, especially with some of the vocal rhythms he has. Nobody's like that at all, and no one's ever tried to be like that. So that's the one thing I didn't try to be. I was like, if I try to imitate him, I'm just going to be pillory. I don't need this. So get the best element of him, which is the songwriting, where he was going, let's say in 82, 80, just between 82 and like 84, because he died in what, 86?
86.
Yeah. So, I love that last Gary Moore, the last tunes he did with Gary Moore. I love those.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where he was going.
Yeah. I'm curious to know if you've heard Black Star Riders, the band.
I have.
Well,
yeah.
Now, I've interviewed Ricky Warwick a couple of times, and of course, the original intention with that was to call it Tin Lizzy and record new music, and it's morphed into Black Star Riders now over the years, and Ricky's the only original member left, but they've kind of done what you've done in a way.
Yeah.
It's they're trying to get their own sound, modern sound, but Lizzy is embedded in them as well. You can see the similarity between what you're doing, I think, and what they're doing.
Oh, totally. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm fine with, because it's, I think, having heard them and consciously not trying to sound like them, but we both draw from the same well, as it were. I think we did a pretty good job of being in our own corner, because I think they're great. But the big advantage is I don't sing like Ricky and he doesn't sing like me.
Yeah.
That's huge.
True. So what are your expectations for the record? Like, what do you consider a success to be now for something like this? Just to get it done?
Yeah, I mean, it was like, sometimes it's like any project like that. If you just get it done, that's just huge, because so many people think, how many people just start, well, I'm going to start working on the garage this weekend, I'm going to clean it up, and, and they get, a couple of tools cleaned and they put them back in the toolbox. This was, we sat down and got 9 songs done. And ones I'm really happy with. We are literally doing the drum tracks for the second one this week, which is all written, ready to go. So we're working on that one this week. So the first one's, begets the second one. So the response we're getting is making me very optimistic about the second one, because of the positive feedback we got, and people like the stuff. And you know what? Also, they like the themes. They all like different songs on the record. Yeah, which is cool. It's not like everyone's zoning on one song. No, that's the one I like. No, I'm getting 5, 6, 7 different ones, which is great.
Do you find writing these songs easy? The style? No. I know that's probably a loaded question, but because some people might listen to a song like that and say, yeah, that's easy to write. But is it?
Right. No, it's not. And I think what makes it different is, no matter what, you have to have those guitars in there. That is such an integral theme of what that music says. There is no doubt about it. There has to be kind of this weird, funky, non-rock, but kind of rock drumming of Brian Downey. Then you have Phil Lynot's bass playing, which is sometimes very straight, like, Baby Drives Me Crazy. Dun, 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 dun. I mean, that's just, meat and potatoes bass playing. But then you got Renegade, which is not. Completely different bass line. And then you'll have something like, Angel of Death, which is almost metal from that era.
Yeah.
But it's on the same record as,
Renegade.
You're right, yeah. Or what's the other one I love over there? Is that Pressure Will Blow? Is that on that one?
It is. That's my favorite Lizzy record.
Yeah, it's a great one. You know what I can't say, and this is, you'll get a chuckle out of this. That record cover to me is so beautiful. Oh,
the flag! Oh, it's fantastic.
It's unbelievably beautiful. Then you go to Thunder and Lightning, and it's like a gloved fist, and it feels P-Bass shoved into a dirt pile somewhere. I don't know, the lightning striking. I'm like, what? Did you guys think of this on the way to the studio? After that beautiful cover, or the Jim Fitzpatrick covers. I'm like, these beautiful covers. Yeah. And you sign off with that one?
Yeah, and that really is their metal record, Thunder and Lightning.
Totally is, yeah. It's great, and not a lot of Final Bandsome records are good, but yeah, that's definitely one of the few things that they never did, which was follow a trend. They were kind of creeping into what was going on at the time. But by just having Sykes on play guitar, I mean, you got this kid, at the time, he was 24?
Yeah.
And he's great. And I love that record, but yeah, it's a weird record for them.
I want to segue into Cold Sweat, the band.
Sure.
Because I'm going from Thunder and Lightning with Cold Sweat into the band. Is that true that the band was named after that song?
It was. We were supposed to be called Ferrari because Mark started the band. But as you might imagine, Enzo had other ideas and was like, you know what, guys? I don't want you selling merchandise that says Ferrari that I've been selling for 50 years for my cars. So, no. So we had to find another name. So we went with Crying Shame, which is one of the songs on the record. But there was a band from the 60s called The Crying Shames, and they wanted us to pay this rather exorbitant license fee. And we said no. So Anthony White and myself, who were obviously ardent Thin Lizzy fans, said, well, how about Cold Sweat? And there you have it. There we are.
I can't believe that name wasn't taken.
Well, it was. It was. And a band sued us for it, and they had a case because our lawyer at the time just did not do his due diligence, and they ended up getting some money from MCA and some other people. Okay. So yeah, lesson learned on that one. Don't take everything your lawyer says as a word of God. Double check him. So
I know there's the whole story with Oney Logan that George Lynch took him practically at a gig, right, that you guys were doing.
Oh, yeah.
You've told that story many times over the years. I want to know, how was the news broken to you that he left? Did he do it himself or did he get someone else to do it?
Oh, you're going to like this. We were going to sign our record deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we were in Wendy Dio's office. She's our manager. And Anthony has even brought a special pen for this day. Now, Eric, myself, Mark, and Ann, and Oni at one point had all moved to LA to make it big, right? And here we were. We were going to sign the record deal. It was going to be done. Then we walk in, we sit down, and Wendy has it in front of our little chairs, and we have our pen on there, except for Anthony who has his. And Oni's not sitting with us. He's over on the other side of Wendy's desk, and there's no paper in front of him. So immediately, alarm bells are going off. And I'm looking around, and we're all sitting there, and Oni says, well, boys, Oni has something to tell you. I'm just going, oh, what would that be, On? And he says, well, I went to Phoenix this weekend, where George lived, and visited with George, and I'm joining Lynch Mob. And I'm thinking to myself, you're kidding me. We're literally everything I worked for, it's right here in front of me, and you're going to walk out. And he did. We got Don Dokken on the phone to try and talk him out of it. Someone else called in to try and talk him out of it. And he wasn't going to stay. He's like, that's it. I'm out. I'm going. And in hindsight, I understand. But boy, at the time, it was just ruinous. You're thinking we're never going to get another shot like this. But we spent about the next 5 or 6 months looking for Rory Cathy and found him and got the record done and got out on the road.
I want to know the names that were thrown about when Oni left, who auditioned for you, or who was on your wish list. Did the label try and push a big name guy on you?
Actually, that's funny. They never did. We had a nationwide contest through the Z-Rock. So we got all these audition tapes in. We went through everybody in LA, including Ralph Saenz, who's now in Steel Panther. There was a guy from this band called some platinum, something blonde, Dirty Blonde. We were trying to get him. There was another guy from a band called Northrop. We were trying to get. So a couple of the other guys that we saw worked. They just didn't work. They were great on their own thing, but it was like, who else? There was another guy who sang for Alex Mossy, who was so close, but we didn't get him. But yeah, I think it was different than like with Song on Kick when Matt quit. We had we did have Atlantic pushing people at us, but with Cold Sweat, it was kind of like, okay, boys, you're on your own. We saw everybody in LA if they were a singer, just and everybody's friend. And the guy we found, Roy, came through Oni's best friend. He found him in a bar in Florida and sent a photo and a tape, and like, well, here we go, we got him. But yeah, we saw everybody, man. I mean, we're talking 3-4 guys a week for 5 months easily. Oh yeah, it was just over and over and over, and just nope, not just. You know, and it's not like Oni was, operatic in his vocal approach. There was a vibe and something that someone had to bring to the songs. And it's right. There was a guy named Billy Cohen who was in a band called Rings of Saturn. So close, but it's just something like didn't finally gel at the end. But Billy was the closest LA singer we got. We thought it was going to work, and then I forget what happened at the last minute. It's like, no, didn't click.
Was it a personality thing or a vocal thing? Because you want to have someone that can hang with you.
Right. We hung with him pretty well. I think it must have been more of a vocal approach because what we were becoming, we got signed one way, which is almost kind of that hair metal-y, poppy metal-y, rocky kind of thing.
Yeah.
But we were evolving into what we wanted to be, which is more the Thin Lizzy, the Bad Company, Tesla, that type of style. And we were heading that way. So the last couple of songs that were written for the record were definitely that way. So we needed that vibe. But you bring up a good point. You have to get along with this person, whoever they are. It's crucial you get along with this person, because we were so tight after that point. We've been through so much together that summer to try and find somebody, and nobody thought about quitting. No one thought about no, everyone hung in. We were going to get stuff. We did, but it I think if you went with what's big now, Ralph, I would say was he was the one people would know the most. The guy who's singing for Steel Panther, Ralph came down.
Okay.
And there was another guy named Paul Colt, who his drummer was Ricky Sanders, and his guitar player was Pete. He was in Saigon Kick, and Rick was in Saigon Kick for a minute, and also Rick's on the Kinell record as well.
Nice. Now, Kevin Beamish did the Cold Sweat album, right?
Yes.
I'm curious to know, was he the original guy you wanted to produce, or did you end up having him because it took you so long to find a singer and the original guy couldn't do it?
No, Kev he was the guy who was going to do it, and Kev hung with us the whole time. He didn't. If he had another gig, he took it and came back. But yeah, Kev believed in us and hung out the whole time. And Kev was actually the deciding vote. We were so jaded by the time Roy Cathy shows up that we're acting like whatever. I mean, here's this kid who comes in and just slays the joint. And we kind of see him and we're talking, and he's just he's great. He seems eager, and I'm like, well, yeah. And I look at Kevin and I said, what do you think? He goes, if you guys don't take this, if you guys don't take this guy, you're idiots. And I said, really? He goes, yeah, let's go make a record already. I was like, okay, done.
Okay.
But we saw everybody. We saw Thompson and Barbier. We saw Eddie Kramer. We saw Michael Jackson. We saw who was another one of the big ones. So we saw everybody, to try and grab a producer at that time. But back to your point of getting along, Ken had done, of course, he'd done R.E.O. Speedwagon, High Infidelity, which we all loved. And he did a Y&T record. He did a lot of Y&T records, which we all loved.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he did Down for the Count, and he did what's the other one? Yep. Yes. See, I loved those Leatherwolf records, both of them.
Yeah.
I thought they were great.
Yeah.
So I was all for Kev, but he was definitely into the you got to play like a band and you already get along, but it's got to come across on the record. So he was very good at getting a performance out of us. And we were very grateful for the fact that he hung with us and he didn't bail out. Like, he could have bailed out and we would have been, let's say we would have got Roy Cathy, and then it would have been, okay, where's our producer? We don't have one. But he didn't. He stuck with us. Thank you, Kev.
So you're in the studio recording that record, right? He's a big name producer.
Sure.
How does he push you to get a performance out of you? Like, would he put his arm around you, or would he shout at you?
It depends on who you are.
Okay.
Which was a valuable thing for me to learn later, right? Because not everyone's the same.
Yeah.
So like for me, there was one of the songs we did. I just want to make love to you live. So that's 100% live. But the strings I'd used on the bass were just dead. So while the performance was cool, it just sounded like it was too woolly. So Kevin and I went out to dinner at a Mexican place. We came back. He's like buying us margaritas, and we're just going, ee. And he says, well, we got to do this bass track now. Now what? I said, well, so let's do it. Of course, I'm full of bravado and tequila. So sure, let's go, Kev. Come on, rock and roll, right? So all of a sudden, I turned to Arthur Shelby, in the studio, and he goes, "I bet you can't do it." I said, "I won't get the beginning, because it's all, I don't want you to say bam, then bam, 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 these kind of off notes." I said, "I'm not going to get that, but I will get the rest of the song in one shot." And he goes, "Yeah, right. Let's see you do it." So we're cocky back and forth, elbowing each other and tossing out insults, and I nailed it. And he was totally cool with it, and cheerleading me on during it, and we're almost done, whatever. So, but with Mark, he was much more kind of studious and thoughtful and not disciplined, but almost professorial, where they're more analytical about how they wanted to take it. With Eric Gammons, Eric was a kid at the time. He was like 20 years old. So he kind of treated Eric like a skater punk, kind of pushing him around and saying, "Here, give me the guitar, I'll play it right. What's wrong with you?" And Eric, "Hey, give me that back," that kind of stuff. And Anthony, he loved Anthony. So he was always comparing Anthony to Leonard Hayes. He'd say stuff like, "Leonard got it in one shot, I'm just letting you know." And get all fired up and, all right, Kev, all right, I got it. So it was, and with Roy, he just let him go. Because as soon as he heard him sing, he was like, I don't have to do much here except kind of just guide him into the right take. So he was really good at, I think like any good coach, seeing the personalities and what would motivate or not motivate somebody, and stay away from what didn't motivate you and lean towards what did. Okay.
You ended up touring with Dio on that record. Was that in the US or was it in Europe?
That was US.
Okay. Now, that was with Rowan Robertson, who had just joined the band, 17 years old. You would have seen him a lot. Was he very reserved and quiet, like young, a lot green behind the ears in a lot of ways? Or was he approachable and you guys talked a lot and had a great time?
He and Eric were roommates. So, we saw Rowan, he was like my little brother. I saw him all the time.
Okay.
And he was, typical British, very, very reserved and understated, and kind of sideways with the humor sometimes. But then he picked up the guitar and whip off the solo like Rosanna by Toto and just go, "Good Lord, how old are you?" And he would just make it look like nothing. I'm just going, God, that's unbelievable. But yeah, he was so unassuming, so fun to hang around with, no ego, no nothing, just goes out and just shredded every night. And like if he caught you, we'll look at him, like we'd be standing on the stage watching. Because I went out every night and I watched Ronnie every night.
Okay.
And I mean, literally, you have a legend here. You better learn something. And Rowan had seen me looking at him and make a face or do a dance or whatever, and then go right back into play. It's like, you're clearly 17 and you're the greatest thing in the world. I love you.
What about the other guys in the band he had? Because he had Simon Wright, Jens Johansson, and Teddy Cook, didn't he?
And Teddy.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Teddy and I, of course, got along great because we were bass players.
Yeah.
But Simon, who'd been in AC/DC, again, I think he's Welsh or Scottish. He was again a little more reserved, but I mean, a nice guy. Jens, I knew from Yngwie's band. I knew Jens and Anders when we were all in LA. So when he got the gig, I was ecstatic for him. So I would ask him to play things in his keyboard solo every night. "Can you play a little Chopin for me, please?" Yeah, sure. So he'd whip off the Chopin just for me, and no one would get it, but I was pleased. But we'd watch that band every night too, and just go, "Good Lord!" I mean, Ronnie always had great bands, but that was a really good one.
Hi, everybody. This is David Reese of Saints and Sinners, and you're listening to Focus on Metal. Ow!
Big changes in the band at the time, though.
Oh, huge!
Yeah, everybody except Ronnie was new.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and we were there for part of that, because we were both rehearsing at the same places. And, the problem was with Jimmy, and Vinny just couldn't handle it anymore. He's just like, "Man, I just can't deal with this, And I think they had just gotten Rowan, so Rowan was the only constant. And something happened with Claude, because I think Claude was supposed to come back, but I forget what happened, why he didn't. So I think they got Rowan first. Rowan was going through the auditions with Jimmy and Vinny, and they hadn't got the key. Yeah, Claude had been fired, so pardon my murkiness here. But so then everyone's gone, and I want to say they got Jens first because he was in LA. Then I want to say Simon was next, and I think Teddy was last, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. I want to ask you a question because you said you were there when they were rehearsing and Vinny and Jimmy was there. One of the things I've read in interviews over the years, Jimmy and Vinny have said, is that they wanted a guy called Gary Hoey to be the guitar player. Do you remember him being there?
Oh, yeah. I never remember coming. I know the guitar player for sure, but I don't ever remember him coming down, no.
Okay, because I think that they wanted Gary and Ronnie wanted Rowan. I think that's one of the things they said that it came down to.
That sounds vaguely familiar.
It's Ronnie's band.
Yeah.
Ronnie wins.
Yeah, he does. And he had a way about him, right? You know, that he tended to get his way. But I don't recall that at all. I'll ask him. I can ask Eric Gammons. He might remember. But I only remember Rowan getting the most attention. They brought, again, kind of like everybody in LA because everyone wanted to be in Ronnie's band, you know? But at that point, like Doug Aldrich was still in, I think he was still in Lion, so he wasn't coming down. Tracy G was in World War III, so he wasn't coming down. You know, these guys would obviously show up later. Yeah. No, I don't ever remember Gary coming in because I remember liking Gary's playing a lot. So if he was there and I would have seen him, I definitely remember. Okay. I want to go on to Saigon Kick. I'm sure you're aware the Water album is 30 years old this year. It is. It is. By the way, I got one thing left on the Cold Sweat. Yeah, go ahead. A little story for you. Go ahead. So we're in Minneapolis, and for some reason, and this has never ever happened in my entire career again, I'm the only right-handed bass player on the tour. Right. So you got Teddy, who's a lefty, and you got Skid Row's from Love Hate, who's lefty. Right, okay. And then me. We come into the venue, and I'm talking to Billy Morgan, our tour manager, and he says, "I need your bass tonight." I said, "For what?" I said, "He goes, Ronnie needs your bass." And I knew Ronnie played bass. Something I don't know. He used to record a demo. I said, "Okay, I give up." Why? He said, "Geezer's coming down." I said, "What? Butler? Goes, you know any others?" I'm like, "Well, fair question." I said, "Geezer's coming in?" And now I'm still friends with Geezer's bass tech at the time, and he's standing just grinning at me. And I'm like, what do you mean? Geezer's going to come in, they're going to play Neon Nights. You're kidding. No, so we need your bass. Okay, you can have it. So I run into Wendy a little bit later. I'm just over the moon here. I'm thinking Geezer's going to play my bass. Mm-hmm. This is fantastic. Yeah. So Wendy sees me. Said, "What else? Terry's wanting to be here, you know. So what do you want?" And what do you want? What do you want out of it? I said, "I just want to meet him." What do you think? I'm going to rent my bass to Big Geezer for a song? No. And she goes, "Okay, done." So they do the show. He comes out and plays, and you can find this on YouTube. It's somewhere in I think in Minneapolis or something like, you know, Forest Hills or something in Minnesota. And it would have been August or September of '90. Okay. And Geese comes out and they do Neon Nights, and I'm just literally staring at the stage, just going, "That's Geezer Butler playing my bass on Neon Nights." This is why you get into this business. You don't do this for the money and the fame and the chicks on. You do it for cool moments like this that you can't buy. Yeah. Right. So I'm thinking, cool. Now I'll get to go meet him. So we do. We go backstage, and I'm sitting on the couch, and it's me, Geese to my right, Gloria Butler to his right, and Wendy is across from us. And we're sitting there talking. I'm just kind of being quiet and reverential and just, "This is amazing. Okay, if you had told me this when I bought Heaven and Hell, I wouldn't have believed you." And finally, I think Gloria says, "Terry, that's say hello to Chris. This is, you know, from Chris from Cold Sweat." And Geese turns to me and goes, "Oh yeah, great. Hi, blah blah. Nice. Thanks. You know, nice to meet you." And he turns back around, and Wendy and Gloria lay into him. You know, "This Chris lent you his bass. That's his bass you played." Blah, blah. And he's horrified. He's so embarrassed now. He turns back around. "I'm so sorry, man. I'm so sorry, right? Oh, God." He's like, "How was it?" "It was okay. And I'm just going, no, I thought it was great. I'm just sitting with Geezer Butler. I must sound like an idiot, you know. And he's asking me, how was my performance? How was my this? Was the tone good? I haven't played that song in so long. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, you're talking to Geezer Butlers, and he's giving you, he trusts you enough to give your opinion. Tell him. So I said, I did. I thought it sounded fine. I think you're worrying too much. You know, everything sounded great. It's just fun to see you play again. And he said, "Oh, thanks, mate, thanks." And that was the end of that. So I walk out of the room, and I'm just happier than all happy because Terry Geezer Butler has played my bass, and there's, like I said, there's audio proof somewhere. And if you had told me that like at the beginning of the tour, I never would have believed you.
Do you still have the bass?
I don't. I gave it to my bass tech. I know. I hear you. I gave it to my bass tech in when I was with Saigon when he left. He left the gig, and I had to hire my usual guy. And he took the bass with him. And I asked him a couple of years ago, "Do you still have that?" And he kind of looked at me with a blank look. I was like, "Oh God!" But I have a matching bass that one was white. I have a matching bass that is black that I still have, and that was the one they took all around the world. And Lemmy played it. Sam Kinison played it. Don Dokken played it. Richie Kotzen played it. Eric Bass played it. So that's my consolation prize. I don't have the one Geese played, but I got the bullet belt marks on the back of my black one from Lemmy. So that's pretty cool.
Okay, let's get on to the Saigon Kick Water album. But I want to go back a little bit before then.
Go ahead.
I want to know how you found out that they needed a bass player.
Monday morning in Los Angeles, California, I get a phone call from my friend John Germanario, who was working at Mercury at the time. And John has one of those typical New Yorker voices like, "Dude, I'm telling you right now, okay, Saigon needs a bass player. And you got to send it to this guy and send it to that guy." I'm thinking to myself, you're kidding me. Because Saigon was my favorite band, by far. I loved the band. And I'd already had the advanced copy of Lizard, so I'd been listening to it for 2 or 3 months now. And this is May, I think, when I got this call. And so I sent it over. I sent it to our guitar, well, became our guitar tech, my guitar tech, I guess, because I was now in the band, Spidey Plaskin.
Mm-hmm.
And Spidey liked the picture right away and put it on the top of the pile. And their manager called me, who was in actually, I was in Van Nuys, so he was down in Fountain Valley. So he said, "Hey, can you come on down and meet me?" "Sure, I'll be right there." So I come down, meet him, everything goes great. Beeler calls me. I still had a day job at that point. So Beeler calls me the next day at work and says, "Hey, man, we want you to come down because we read your bio." And the first sentence really grabbed me. And I'm thinking to myself, what did I write? And it apparently was, "My favorite band is the Beatles, number one above everybody else." And then after that is Queen, because I love both the bands. And he goes, "We were sold that. So when do you want to come down?" So hopped on a plane the next night, got out there, and we hung out to, we went to lunch and see if everybody could, get along.
This is Florida now. You went from LA to Florida.
Yes, right. On the overnight. So I'm, completely burnt out.
Yeah.
But I'm ecstatic because this is now, this thing just drops out of the sky on top of me. This this ultimate wish, because at that point Cold Sweat was done. I was doing Cold Gin because it was fun and it was paying well.
Yeah. But
I was trying to find another gig. I was auditioning for damn near everybody. Nothing was coming through, which is okay. That's just the way that goes.
Any bands I know, Chris, that you didn't get on? Any name bands?
Well, there are a couple that I auditioned for, and I turned them down because I just didn't want to do it because I didn't feel it was fair to just take money.
Okay.
I just wasn't one of those guys. Nitro was one of them.
Okay.
And they're awesome guys and all that, but what they offered, I said, "I'm making more in Cold Gin, dudes. I'm sorry. You guys are great. I love you, and you're cool. But this is a financial thing at this point." And they're totally cool with it. Another was Unruly Child.
Oh, I love that band.
Bruce Gowdy, and Mark, Marcy now, and who else was in that band? Jay Shellen was in that band.
Larry Antonio, I think, got the bass player.
Yes, yeah. So Bo Hill had seen me. They didn't have a bass player, so Bo Hill had seen me in a LA rock newspaper, whatever magazine, that said, "You guys need attitude. go find that guy. And it was me.
Okay.
so I mean, it's very Hollywood, right? The producer sees you in the magazine. Come on down, kid. I'm gonna get you. You make you a star. And I go down, and I mean, I love Bruce's stuff on the Stone Fury record. He's just great guitar player, great writer. I had opened for Mark when he was in King Cobra when I was in Madison, so I knew he was a great singer. And I had the King Cobra records. He was phenomenal. So I'm like, wow, holy mackerel! But I went down there, and I'm listening to the tunes, and I'm singing with them, and they're really kind of cool guys and whatever. But I'm like, this ain't me. I can't take this guy's. I'm just not going to take a salary just to take a salary with a band that's it didn't go against the grain, but it was just, I wouldn't feel like I was being authentic. Did
you hear the album before Unruly Child that Bruce and Guy did, the World Trade record with Billy Sherwood?
No, I've heard about that record, though.
Yeah, it's very 80s Yes sounding. It's a fabulous album. Keith Olsen produced it.
Okay,
yeah. So that's not really like Unruly Child. Unruly Child was just a straight up hard rock band.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the album's fabulous, but that's just me.
Yeah, it was great. And I mean, and they wanted me also because I could sing.
Yeah.
And I told I'm just this way too. I told I told Bruce I love this stuff. I told Mark I loved him too. Just you're singing so this, and you're good strong vibrato, and just your tone is great, and da. And so he had us do a bunch of backup vocal rehearsals, and it sounded phenomenal. But I go back to my apartment, and my buddy's like, "Dude, what are you gonna do?" And I said, "I just not me, man. I can't do it." And so Jay calls me and says, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Dude, I can't do it. I can't take your money. I can't. I'd be a liar. So, and that's not fair to you guys. You guys should have someone who's way into the band and is into it. And it's not like you guys aren't killers. You're all great, but it just ain't me. I'm sorry." He's like, "Dude, I appreciate it. I appreciate your candor." So that was one of them. Those are two. I'm sure there were a couple others.
Okay.
I got a call about Alice in Chains after Mike Starr died. I remember getting a call about that, but I think I was already in Saigon.
Okay. When you went to audition for Saigon Kick, what songs did you play?
They told me I should know both records front to back, and I did.
Okay.
So I think the first thing we played was New World. And there's that one section in New World where it goes, and it's kind of very chromatic and lots of flat seconds and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't really kind of tell what's going on in the record because Wagner's got all this flange and crazy stuff going on. So I approximated the riff. I got close, but what I did was I watched Beeler's hand. I was like, "Oh, okay, he's doing E to F to, okay, gotcha, all right." So we finished the song, and Jason, no fool, goes, "Can we run over the middle part again?" I go, "What's that? Which one?" He's like, "Just for that kind of solo section." I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So we do it, and I play it right this time, right? Instead of faking my way through it, goes, the first time. He goes, "Okay, well, that sounded right that time. I don't know. I guess I missed it." I'm just going, "Okay." Dodged a bullet there, and I did that on like one other thing. The only one I wasn't completely set on was God at 42nd Street. I was like, that there seems to be a lot going on. I don't know if that's just what was kind of meant at the time, or if I'd be playing too much or whatever. So I just kind of played it very basic. And Jason said, "No, it goes like this. I wrote the bass part here. I'll just show you." I said, "Okay, cool." So he showed it to me. We took a break, went back to the hotel for an hour and a half, and I nailed it. I just made sure I had it. And we came back, and I played it as it's played. And I think that was one of the things that just got me the gig, because I knew it. I knew it all, and they could tell I was into it. I was ready to be their bass player.
How long did they keep you hanging before they gave you the job?
That's a good question. Because we went out that night and, of course, got hammered just to make sure nobody gets, because what can happen? You throw a little beer into someone and they get a little nutty on you.
Yeah.
But we're just acting like idiots, having just a blast. So we do another day of audition, and then I go home, and as I'm getting ready to leave, Jay says, "Look, man, we both know you're the guy, but you were the first one in. So there's some other people we promised we'd see, and we're going to see them, but, we'll give you a call and that's what happened." And I understood this, having the whole thing, and and they were legends in South Florida. So I'm sure everyone and their mother was trying to climb on everyone's head to get to them. So I go home, fly back to LA, see my girlfriend, who was now my wife, and say hello and say, she asked how it went, and I told her. And, because this was all before cell phones and all that stuff, so it has to be real-time reporting. I go to Blockbuster Video, of course, dating the whole story, and to get us some movies to watch. So I get back, and she says, Jason Bieler called. And I was like, oh, crap. I'm thinking, I wasn't even in the house 2 minutes, and I already got the axe, right? And I call him, hey, man, how's it going? He goes, cool. You get home okay? Yeah, everything's fine. Great. Awesome. Great flight. Yep, everything's fine. Thank you. Well, the gig's yours if you want it. I said, really? He goes, yeah, we saw a couple of guys there. I was like, nope, you're the guy. We were right. So when do you want to come back? I was like, when do you want to come back? He's like, well, we're going out on the road in 10 days. So I'm guessing that's soon. You want me back kind of soon. Okay, let me get back on the plane. So I did. Okay,
and did you go straight out with Extreme?
No, that was, that would have been in June when I joined. And then we got out with Extreme in January of 93. So it was June of 92 to January of 93. We were on our own. Okay.
When did you get a sense that Matt wasn't happy with what was going on with the band?
I think that came out mostly during the Extreme tour. And I don't know why. But then it really started swelling out of control in Sweden. Okay. And I think as the new guy, you kind of pick up on some things, and then there's other things you're completely oblivious to because they have a history without you.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a weird position for me to be in because while I knew them, I knew them for a year at that point. If we're getting ready to go back in and do the record, and once we got to Sweden, that's when things started to unravel.
So you were doing pre-production, or were you actually recording the record?
It was we had jumped into, actually right into the record. We'd come off the road at Extreme, I think in May of 93, and this is one of the most boneheaded things a band ever did. And we have a few of them. But we were offered the Bon Jovi tour. And we didn't take it because we were going to go write a record in Sweden. We had no material, nothing. We were just going to go and try to do a Beatles Let It Be thing. We're just going to do it right in the studio, and it's cool. And it did produce some amazing moments. But in hindsight, no dummies. Why don't you stay on the road with Bon Jovi, push the record to platinum right while you're out there, and then come back and do a record? But our management at the time did not see that as a viable alternative, so we all packed up our stuff and went to Sweden.
I remember...
Ill-advised.
Yeah, I remember at the time, bear in mind now, I'm not in the US, so, Love Is On The Way was the big song over here, it was all over MTV, but it wasn't really the same in Europe. Like, you guys were still really an underground band.
Yeah, yeah.
But the guys who knew the band really knew the band. And I couldn't believe, one, within a year the singer was gone, and two, you'd actually recorded a brand new record. I was like, fuck me, that's quick.
Yeah. Well, that's there was a lot of incentive to get that done, as you might imagine. I remember sitting in a car. We were going from Tampa because we broke off the sessions in Stockholm. We went to Tampa to finish it off at Morrisound. And Dix Rudolph came in. He was the president of Third Stone. He came in with Jason Flom, that was vice president of Atlantic at that point. And they're both huge fans of the band. They love us or whatever, but they're coming in to pull the plug. So I get in the car. They listen to the record, and I get in the car, and we all drive to Orlando, where I hop off and get with my future in-laws and my wife, and we go to Disney World. And I've been instructed, do not say anything about this conversation that you've heard over the last hour and a half going from Tampa to Orlando. And it was basically, they're done, we're pulling the plug, they're all going home, and I'm sitting there like the ultimate spy, in the ultimate spy movie going, what do I do here? What do I do? So I shut up, and I wait, and we all drive back. We come back in a couple days, and Flom and Dick show up, and Ronnie Lottie, our engineer, and he'd done this on Love Is on the Way, went in and sang a bunch of backup vocals on the song I Love You, and turned it into this, what became a huge hit over in Indonesia and in the Pacific Rim and parts of Europe, but didn't do anything in the U.S. And they didn't pull the plug. So they let us finish the record.
Okay. When Matt left the band, did he come in and tell you guys, or did he just up and leave?
It was kind of a combination. There was of course, there's some great internet lore of how he quit, but what basically happened was too many breakfasts at the Stockholm Sheraton where we tried to talk him into staying, because you're just coming off a gold record. Stick it out, get this one done. Atlantic is behind us; they want to push it. Blah 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 blah. And he couldn't be convinced, so it just kind of fizzled. He just left we were all staying at that hotel, and he left the hotel and he went to hang with his girlfriend, if I'm not mistaken, and lived there until we went home. And then awkward of awkward things, we were all in the same plane going home.
Oh man!
Yeah, that was a fun little moment in the airport. I mean, everyone was civil and all that, but it was a little weird. But yeah, there was no. It was more like. It kind of fell to the ground with a quiet thud, after unraveling. There were no blow-ups. There were no screaming, yelling matches. There was no throwing down a set of headphones and stomping out of the studio. Nothing like that. It just literally fizzled out, and we had to finish. So part of that mentality I mentioned earlier, where we were going to just go right in the studio, manifests itself in the song The Way, which is Jason and I teaching that song to Phil. We just haven't had tape rolling. Phil hadn't heard it. Jason and I, kind of worked it out, and so we literally taught it to Phil and played it and recorded it, and that's the take you hear. That's the one we taught Phil. Now,
of course, one of the things you read on the internet about why Matt left was he wasn't happy with the direction that the album was going. But my take on Saigon Kick is they didn't really have a direction; they were all over the map anyway.
Right,
and
exactly.
That's what made him great.
Yeah, that was my favorite part about it. We were, as far as I know, still to this day, the only band that has a punk song and a samba on the same record. On Devil in the Details. Sure. I mean, on that record, on Water, we have the crunchiness of One Step Closer, and then you got a muted jazz trumpet. On Sentimental Girl. Yeah. Why not? It's just fine to us, right? Mm-hmm. As I like to say, Madonna and Motorhead live right next to each other in my record collection. So why not? But yeah, that was, I've read that too. And I don't understand where that comes from. It might be not the benefit of hindsight, but the tinting of hindsight, that lens. Because, when he was in there, he was killing it. He sounded great. His performances were great. There was nothing about anything that he was doing that was half-assed. I thought everything he was doing was fantastic. And there were no fights on, well, we need to do this song, we need a heavier one, or we need to write another hit, or there was none of that.
How much of the record was done with Matt singing the songs that has never been released?
I'd say there were probably 4 or 5. Okay. Where Matt was that were on. Okay. So but I think Atlantic wiped them, so they don't have them, which is a bummer because it'd be fun to release those. Yeah. But because he killed it. I mean, Matt's version of Sergeant C was really, really cool. Okay. It really was.
Did you get on with Matt?
I did. There was I think a level of you haven't earned this from him that I got. I didn't, struggle in the early days with them. To which my point was, well, you guys didn't struggle with me in Los Angeles, So we're as far as I'm concerned, we're even here. We're just meeting at the same spot in the road. But he was the only one I got that from. But it was otherwise, yeah, we got on fine. Okay. He would run over and look to me like he had a problem with his vocals one night. Can you sing this chorus for me? He said, sure, no problem. So I would. And when we were out with Extreme, Gary pulled me aside and he goes, Pat does the same thing for me that you do for Matt. You guys are awesome. I love you.
At this stage, did Jason come up to you at all and say, do you have any ideas, or was that just off limits at the moment?
At the moment, I think off limits is a good way to put it, because I think he was under so much pressure to pull this thing out of his ass and make it work, right? Yeah. And whereas with me, I'm just trying to figure out. You got to realize, I now have to sing all of Matt's parts in the shows.
Yeah,
right.
That was my next question.
Yeah. So I'm going and trying to go off of production ideas and whatever for what limited I can on water, because I am still the new guy, in a lot of ways. I always heard stories about Rush where they would still tease Neil that you're still the new guy, just calm down. So for me, more of that came to fruition, I think, on Devil. More writing, more production ideas, more singing bits, because I was more ensconced in the band. Whereas the first run, I was pretty much the bass player on the road. I hadn't done a record with them yet, so they didn't know if I could do anything. They didn't know if I could play in the studio. They had no idea.
Yeah. So you said earlier on that the label was pushing singers on you for Saigon Kick.
Yep.
Anyone I'd know?
Corey from Warrior Soul was, I think.
Corey Clark.
Corey Clark, yeah. Who I think would have been really interesting, because I like Warrior Soul. And then Andrew Eltz from the Sleazebees was another one too.
Okay. But it didn't go anywhere. Jason just put his foot down and said, no, I'm doing it.
I think it was, I think I want to be the man. I want to do it. So, okay. All right, cool. Okay. And we did. By the way, he's looking my way going, by the way, you got to sing now. Okay. Well, good thing I could do a Matt imitation.
So who did you tour with on the Water album?
We were out with a band called Moonwater was one. Another band called Naked Rhythm was one. And I think there might have been one more. But it was those two pretty much. Okay. Naked Rhythm was a band that Phil had produced. And they were from Florida. And I think Moonwater was from, I forget where they were from, but they were all of them were great guys. Good bands. Was it difficult to pull off the material with just the three of you? Yeah, it was. There were some tense rehearsals, man. Because playing Susie it's got a weird beat to it. The way it's kind of the bass has to do that weird ding 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 ding, and I'm trying to sing this floating melody over the top of it, and I always thought I got all of it except for like this one part that I was just never happy with. But no one said anything. But it was just, so, okay, now I've got to memorize all these songs, lyric-wise, and, okay, you got to run over here and play keyboards on Close to You, okay, and I'll do this, okay, and play guitar on this other one. I'm just like, oh, my God, because we're all, this is, again, before people were tracking stuff, so we're doing it all ourselves. And we had Pete Dabrowski on guitar, who was, a huge help, and just ridiculously talented. So he would play stuff, solo-wise during the songs that Jason typically would have been playing if there was a lead singer. And Pete and Jason had grown up together, so their styles meshed just perfectly. There was no competition. It was just like, you want this one? I'll do this, and you do that. I don't care. Go ahead. And they were just killer. The both of them just killers. I have to ask Chris, because there's banks of vocals on these Saigon Kick records. Did you have any of the backing vocals on tape? Nope. All live. All live. Okay, well that's good to know. To this day, we ran some keyboard tracks because we were because I played them, but we figured, well, we'll run the tracks like on Feel the Same Way or Colors or something. Where it was clearly, I couldn't run over and do both at that point, so we would run that. But there were keyboard tracks that I played, and then Phil got mad one night and threw the iPad across the room, so we didn't use the keyboards after that. But that's what you do. But in those days, you didn't have a way to do that. So you had to sing. So everybody in Saigon Kick except Phil sang. So we worked out our parts, and you throw a little jape on it out at the front of the house, with some echo and delay and chorus and whatever. Yeah. But that was us, and we had to prove it to one guy at a radio station who was saying, you guys can't pull that stuff off live or whatever. And we did a cappella right there in front of him. And he was like, oh, well, yep, I guess you can. Sorry.
Before you go, if you like heavy metal and stories, then you'll love Battle of the Bands, the narrative form metal podcast that unpacks the biggest rivalries in rock and metal history. Season 1 took in Megadeth versus Metallica, and Season 2 went across the divide to explore the beef between Judas Priest and Iron Maiden. It's like Business Wars, but metal. Find Battle of the Bands wherever you listen to your podcasts, or visit battleofthebandspod.com.
Was any of those shows professionally recorded?
Professionally, I don't think so. Well, there's a Westwood one of us at the Roxy in the fall of '92. So there is one. That's the night I remember meeting Michael Wagner and Michael Douglas in the same night.
Okay.
So I know that one's out there. I want to say there might have been one in France that was recorded professionally. But at that point, like, it's so easy to do all that stuff now, you know, but then it was such an ordeal to try and get the label involved. And, you know, we don't want to record more than 3 songs because it's a promo and la, la, la. So I wish there was something professionally that's full show. I mean, I have stuff, Phil has stuff that we shot, like from the side of the stage or from behind us. Mm-hmm. But and Phil put together a video for On and On that's on the Facebook page that he called together from all our personal footage, and it's just fantastic. He just did a great job.
Yeah, you're obviously still in touch with Phil, but you're still in touch with Jason or Matt?
Oh yeah, I haven't talked to Matt in a long time, and Phil and Jason pretty much, if not every other day, it's every week for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
But Jay is doing his stuff with Jeff Soto.
Yeah.
And they were here in my neck of the woods a year ago. So I went and saw them, and I got up and played a bunch of songs with them and stuff. So yeah, doors are, with anybody in any band I've ever been, doors are always open, man. You know, life's too short for that crap. Anyone can talk to me at any time. They have my number. If they have a problem with me, no biggie. I'll take the call. So I've always maintained that, okay, if you have a difference in the band, let the dust settle, and then go back in and see if you can, talk it out.
Final question from me. Did you play with Cole Gin for Paul Stanley's birthday party?
Yes, he did, yes.
Tell me about that experience.
Well, it was great to be paid a check by Gene Simmons, I'll tell you that. But yeah, we had been doing Cole Gin around Los Angeles, and just, wild success. They would come to our shows. We played a gig at the Troubadour where I backed into a candelabra and lit some of my hair on fire. And Gene was, warning me, and I'm like, what are you warning me about? Because, Anthony was talking the Cole Gin rap before. I know there's some people outside, right? And I'm just standing there, and I look up to my right where Gene's kind of in this little box in the Troubadour, and he waves his hands like, no. I'm like, what? No, what do you mean, no? And I see this corona of light behind my head. And it's, I'm on fire. That's the problem. So Gene, so my roadie, Casey, comes out and he puts it out with a towel. Of course, he's 6'6", and he's pounding my head with this towel like he wants to, he puts it out, but, my face is now up at my feet. So I have to straighten back up. Anthony's still going. No one said anything about this, that the bass player's on fire on stage, right? So, it puts it out. My makeup's fine, which is important. I have my hair, which is good. And I look up at Gene, and he mouths the words, "Are you all right?" And I said, "I think so." And he's concerned. He looks concerned. So we get up to play Cold Gin, and I begin the vocal, and I say, instead of the usual vocal, I say, "My heater's broke and my hair's on fire." And Gene just falls off his chair up in the little booth there. So they had come to see us like that show more than once, offered us tips on what to use for the makeup, or are you playing that guitar part just a little off, fix it and do this. And so we were pretty, for Anthony and I, we're pretty tight with him. Jamie and Tommy had already done a couple of records with Gene, and they knew Paul from the Asylum tour. Yeah, right. Yeah. And everybody loves Jamie, so that's you're set if you have Jamie St. James in your band. And so Tommy comes up to us and says, "Hey, man, got a gig, but it's private, and we can't say what it is." I'm thinking to myself, well, this is LA. That can mean anything. And finally, we get it out of him. It's like, Gene wants to hire us. Gene and I think her name was Pam, was Paul's wife at the time, want to hire us to play at the Hollywood Athletic Club for Paul's 40th birthday. So this is January 92. And I'm thinking to myself, again, back to the moment of, are you kidding me? like what do you want us to do? It says we're going to set up in a side room. They're going to cue us, and then they're going to bring Paul in, and we'll be playing when Paul walks in. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And we're tucked in this tiny little room, and Paul comes in, and his ear to ear grin, and Gene is jumping all over the place, and it's fantastic. And Bob Ezrin's there, and we play 2-3 songs, and Gene says, "Okay, that's great. why don't you take the paint off and let's go have some cake. So we do. And we're now standing around this Hollywood Athletic Club party with the makeup off, but you can still see it in our hair and our eyebrows and stuff. And, flirting with playmates. And Donald Trump lent us $100 for the bar. And it was again, one of those things you go, is this real? And then someone gave me Paul's book, his autobiography, and we like begin a chapter. That story begins a chapter. And I'm thinking to myself, this is amazing. This is why you do this stuff, Yeah. If you get to be a millionaire, that's fucking awesome. But if you get to do this, that's even better.
Wow, that's amazing. Was Bruce Kulick there, or
yes, Bruce and Eric were there. Yeah, Eric was there. Yeah, okay. Eric, I forget who Trump was married to at the time. It wasn't. I want to say it was Ivanka, maybe.
Okay.
Or Marla. And he goes, and he says, "Hey, Donald," he says something about Donald, or he gets the wife wrong, and he didn't hear us, so I elbow him in the ribs, like, dude, you got the wrong Marla, or it's not Marla, it's Ivanka, or whatever. I was like, he had it wrong. So, yeah, they were there. They were absolutely there. But like talking to Bob Ezrin, I'm like, wow, I'm talking to Bob Ezrin. This guy's the guy who produced my favorite Alice Cooper records, Mm-hmm. And so I start grilling him about that stuff. What was it like? What is it? And he was, completely forthcoming, and totally cool. And it was just, it was just again that surreal fairy tale of some bizarro Lewis Carroll world where you are buying these people's records and playing them in your room, learning how to play them, and 5-8 years later, you're in the same room with them. They know your name, and you're having a great time at their birthday party.
You know what, Chris, that I've gotten in the conversation I've had with you tonight? You've gone through the ringer of the music business, but the fan has never left you.
No, absolutely not. Never has. Never has. And I don't think it should if you're in this business, because it's such a tenuous leap from fan to having fans. And the cool part about it is I was always very upfront with it. I always told whoever it was I was a fan, and it was usually rewarded. I think there was only one time, and that person remained nameless, that it didn't happen. But I remember with Ronnie, Ant and I were in the rehearsals when Rowan came in, and Ronnie, of course, because he knew we were nerds, said, "Well, mate, is there anything you want to hear this tour?" And Anthony, we want to hear Stargazer, when it's here, Run with the Wolf, LA Connection, and he just starts laughing, and he's like, all right, okay, I get it. And I'm like, okay, cool. So 2 months later, we're out on the road with Ronnie, and they get into Ian's keyboard solo, and he starts Tarot Woman, which is one of the ones I mentioned. And I look at Ian, I'm like, are you kidding me? Then they do that, and they do Stargazer, and they do like 2 others that we asked him to do. And we're screaming like kids. And so we go back after the show. He's already got a huge grin on his face when he sees us coming. He's like, well, what do you think of that? I was like, Ronnie, you're the man. Oh, that was so amazing. Blah, blah. I never thought I'd get to hear those songs ever. Much less with Ronnie singing them. Okay, yeah. So it wasn't Cozy and Jimmy and Richie and Tony, what was the name? Tony Carey. Yeah. Okay, it wasn't them. Still, damn close, right? I'll take it. But yeah, that turned on me too, thankfully. I'm lucky enough, we were at the NAMM show a couple of years ago, and bass player named Dave Bendick and a guitar player named Steve Massera, they're different bands, and we were doing a signing at the SIT strings booth. And I didn't know they were a fan of Cider Cake. And Steve used to come see us in Detroit every time we were there. I didn't know that. And Dave was like a huge fan of the Water record. And they're playing it cool. We're just hanging out. And then finally, the facade breaks. And like, Chris, I said, yeah? I got to tell you something. I'm thinking, oh, shit, did I step on their foot during this thing? I'm thinking that. And they just, the gates open. Oh, man, he's come see you in Detroit. And I'm just laughing. I hope you don't think we're nerds. No, man, this is, I couldn't be more flattered and honored. Thank you. So, yeah, you have to stay a fan, man. Otherwise, where's the fun in it? You play music, man. You don't work music. You play it. It's play.
Yeah. So, Chris, do you want to tell everyone where they can get a copy of Crash Burn Rebirth?
Yes, you can. You can go to Bandcamp and just type in Kinell. There's a couple of Kinells, but you just look for the Marshall Cabinet. I don't know why. I think it's most people's last names. because there's not another band called Kinell. And look for the Kinell Marshall cabinet with the K on it. And you can get either the digital version there, or we actually have printed CDs. We actually printed CDs up. And then the videos that Phil Verone did for me, or for us, are on YouTube, which are just type in Kinell and then What Might Have Been or Take It All. Either of those two, and you'll get the videos as well. But that's pretty much the easiest place to find us.
Okay, and you're already working on the next record.
Yes, yep. So that is, I think we got 10 songs for it, and I'm really pleased with it so far, because it's the idea with second records is sometimes they're the kind of the sophomore slump, but I think in this case, Ricky and Barry are going to be the only ones playing drums that I think so far. So we'll kind of narrow down the approach of the rhythm section. And I think we all know what we're going for this time, which we didn't know what we were going for last time. We're just kind of like, does this sound right to you? Now it's like, okay, we know it wants to go this way, or the song wants to go that way, or what can we do that makes this a little more like us? And again, kind of borrow from the Thin Lizzy recipe book, but not make it just a carbon copy. So for for example, on this record, there will be a saxophone solo.
Okay, nice.
Gotta sneak that saxophone in. Yeah, I'd like to, if I'm really doing it right. I should try and pull this. I'm thinking this off the top of my head. I should try and pull this. Huey Lewis and I went to the same high school, years apart. But we went to the same high school, and he played, of course, on Live and Dangerous and on Phil's solo records and stuff. And he doesn't sing anymore. But I wonder if I can get him to play harmonica on something.
Call him.
I'm gonna. Well, I think if you've learned anything by now, it's like I'll go up and ask. Sure, I don't care.
Yeah.
That's how I met Ed Van Halen. I was coming out for a rehearsal at Sound City, singing the Badlands song "High Wire" at the top of my lungs. And Ed was on his cell phone, those old Motorola bricks, and he whipped his head around to get away from my volume. And I walked up and said, "Oh man, I'm so sorry. I didn't know it was him." And he turns his head and he goes, "Hey man, that's okay. Cool. I'm just on the phone." And I was like, "Yeah, I know. I'm so loud." And I was like, "Oh my God, that's Ed Van Halen." And kind of turn around, be cool, McLernon.
The fan.
So
the fan's
totally
coming out again.
Once again. And so I walk into Sound City, I sit down, and Eric and Mark came after me. And of course, they're practically running in after that. "Did you see he was in the parking lot?" I said, "Yes, I know. I just screamed into his phone." And then we turned up being friends after that, Nice. So many instances in my career are just like that, where I'm just the extrovert. I will go up and say hi. I just will.
Nice.
But it's, I remember Dave Menichetti at one point. We were doing the TJ Martell thing. I was wearing, of all things, like an idiot, my Y&T Mean Street shirt. And I feel this tap on my back, and I turn around to Dave Menichetti. He goes, "Hey, Chris, how you doing?" I'm just thinking to myself, "Really good, Dave. Thanks." Lots, even better now. Thank you very much, sir. And then as the favor was returned, Saigon did a cruise on the Monsters of Rock thingy in a couple years ago, and I run into Dave and I say, "Hey man, I don't know if you remember." "Oh yeah." And he says, "Oh, we got Saigon Kick Mark down as one of our bands we got to see. I can't wait to see you guys." And I'm thinking to myself, it just doesn't get any better than this. It's awesome. This is fantastic. I love it.
Well, on that note, Chris, I'm going to leave you go. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Absolutely, dude. Thank you so much for having me. It was a fantastic journey, and thank you I always appreciate great questions.
Okay,
and
all right.
And you had a list of them. Thank you so
Chris.
much.
Well, thanks very much. And when the next album comes out, I'll have you back on.
Absolutely, man. I would love to.
All right. Take care, Chris.
All right, man. Take care.
All right. Bye.
See you. Bye-bye.
There you go, Richie's chat with Chris McLernon of Saigon Kick and Kinell, of course. I mean, that's really why we have the guy on the show. And again, the name of the album is called Crash, Burn, Rebirth, available over at bandcamp.com. And as Chris says, you can either look up Kinell, Kinell, or my method, look up Crash, Burn, Rebirth, and it's downloadable as well as physical copies available. And if you want to, check things out as well, you can look up that stuff on YouTube and watch the videos. They got 2 videos up there on YouTube right now. So this is definitely a long one. Don't want to keep yakking away at the middle. Thank you for hanging with us for, this almost hour and a half at this point. Appreciate you listening. Keep tuned in. Got some more great stuff coming up. I believe that on the next show, we are going to be talking with Kurt Vanderhoof. Metal Church has obviously put out a great new release, Congregation of Annihilation, and we'll be talking to Kurt about Metal Church, all things Metal Church, new singer, new album, what's going on. So should be good stuff on the next show. But for this week, that's it. There ain't no more. Stick a fork in it. This puppy is done. So for myself and Richie, have yourselves a great metal week. And until we talk to you again, as always, remember,
Focus on metal.
Everything else is insignificant.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.